Well, good afternoon, John. Thank you for joining me for afternoon tea.
You're more than welcome. Afternoon, Karen. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well indeed.
Yeah. So my first question to you is we're going to start at the beginning of your life. What was your childhood like?
I wouldn't say it was the easiest of childhoods. So my parents are deaf, so I'm fluent in British Sign Language, but that resulted in not an easy school life. So I used to be heavily bullied for most of my family being deaf, which was a challenge. But I look back on it as a positive because I don't think I'd be where I am today without that being part of my life. But apart from that, it was a fantastic childhood. I say I'd had three mothers: my auntie, my own mother, and my nan used to look after me, and it was just I loved every minute of it. Loved growing up.
So it was your aunts and your grandmother deaf as well as your mum? Or?
No, they could hear. They were hearing. Yeah.
So it was just your mum and dad that were completely deaf?
Yeah.
Interesting. So were you the only one, or did you have any siblings?
I was the only child. I think that's a fortunate thing because I didn't have to fight over anything, which was quite nice.
So you were spoiled.
I was.
Yeah. So you went to school. You told me that there was problems of bullying. Were there any other problems that you had at school?
No, it was just mainly the bullying was the only problem that I'd say I'd faced. But apart from that, it was plain sailing. I think fitting in was an issue that I had. But apart from that, it was a plain sailing school career, I'd say.
And what was your favourite subject at school, or subject?
Top two subjects, IT and maths, were my two favourite subjects. But then obviously when you do your GCSEs, you only do your GCSEs for a couple of years. So we did business. I chose business studies as one of my GCSEs. So that would be in the top three as well. So that, yeah, IT, maths and business studies were my favourite subjects at school.
Okay. And then did you stop onto the sixth form, or did you?
No, I left in year 11 and I went to college. So I did a level 3 extended diploma in IT networks and system support at Sutton College.
And then did you go to university?
I did. Straight from there, I went straight to Birmingham City University and did a degree in computer network security.
So did you live in at university, or were you travelling back and forth to home?
No, I was at home.
You're at home, okay. So I take it your first job was in some kind of computer department?
It was at my first properly paid job. Actually, I was a silver waiter at Villa Park. So not on a match day, but sort of between match day events and midweek events. They'd host parties and business meetings at Villa Park, and I used to be a silver waiter there at Villa Park. So that was my first official job. Then I also, when I was at university, I left working at the Villa and I became what was called a technical demonstrator for the university. So it'd be where the students would go into the labs and put theory into practice. I used to support first years and second years in their practical tasks. So any questions that they have, I would be there as assistants. Being as I'd already completed those modules before them, I was there to sort of help them with any questions that they had. Then leaving university, I then went to work full time for a cybersecurity company as a cybersecurity engineer, and that was where I made my breakthrough into the industry.
So I take it you weren't there long before you set up your own cybersecurity business?
Surprisingly, I wasn't there that long. I was there for 18 months, and then I left. I left because I noticed a gap in the market where cybersecurity was inaffordable for the SME market. So by identifying that market, I then left the company and set up on my own, and I've never looked back.
Okay. And obviously, cyber security for the average person can be quite frightening.
It can be.
And obviously, they get their computer covered either on a free AVG free or something like that, or they go for the paid version. What's the difference between going for the paid version and going for yourself?
Okay. I suppose an important point to cover there is, from a free perspective, ask yourself this question: would you give away your best service for free? And why would these antivirus providers be giving away their best service for free? That's one. You could buy an off-the-shelf product from PC World or Amazon. You can spend 40 quid a year on getting an antivirus product, but that just sits there doing what it does, and there's no real management to it. And when you don't know what you're looking out for, you don't know how to manage that. So the benefits of using us is the solution that we put in is fully managed. If a detection comes up, we then can solve the problem remotely without you even seeing us there. So it's by having that peace of mind and having a human looking after you, not just the robots. If a problem does come up, we deal with it and we sort it out. And we go that extra mile as well. So if we identify a threat, so there's what's called a 0-day vulnerability out there. And what a 0-day vulnerability is, it's something that's come out in the last 24 hours that nobody knows about. And your typical antivirus providers will not have had time to release the patch to stop that from affecting your device. When we find out about it, we can apply that patch immediately, normally within 6 hours, so that your device is then protected a lot quicker than what you'd normally get from an off-the-shelf antivirus product.
So do you notify your customers or your clients when you do notice they've had an attack, or do you keep it quiet, or is it sometimes the client that or customer notifies you that that's not a problem?
No, we notify the client once it's resolved, unless obviously we need to get onto their machine physically to resolve the problem. We will notify the client when there is a problem. So if you don't hear from us, that is a good thing.
So if there is a problem and you've got to get onto the client's computer, does that mean that you have to come and visit the client, or can you do that remotely?
9 times out of 10, it can be done remotely. There's the odd occasion where we'll have to visit site to sort out a problem, but that's very rare. So most of the time, it's remotely done. Yeah.
So if you have to visit the site, do you charge your client more, or is that all part of the package that they brought for?
Dependent on the agreement that they have with us. Sometimes it's included in the agreement, and sometimes it's an added on cost. It depends on the agreement.
Or could they bring the computer to you if that was easier?
They could bring it to us as well, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So looking back over your life, is there anything about your life you would change?
That's a good question. I don't think I would. I think if you reflect on the past and say, oh, I could have changed this and I could have done this, what difference is it going to do by doing that? So I don't dwell on the past. I always look at what's ahead. For me, everything happens for a reason. And that reason is often down to choice. Choice is the most powerful tool that everybody can possibly have. You either make the choice and it can be great for you, or you make the choice and it can go absolutely wrong for you. And it's the same vice versa. You might not make a choice and it could go well for you, but you might not make the choice and it could be detrimental to you. So looking back on life and then thinking about something I'd change, I wouldn't change anything. Because you can only change the future. The past is the past. Things have happened because they've happened. 9 times out of 10, they happen down to choice. So I don't think I'd change. I don't think I'd change anything, because everything that's happened in the past has built me up to where I am today, and can only improve me going forwards. That was a very long-winded answer, but I don't think the past can't be changed. Things happen for a reason, and you've just got to live with that and look forward.
And the other question is it just UK customers that you've got for cybersecurity, or do you have customers in Europe or elsewhere in the world?
No, we've got a worldwide presence. So predominantly we're a UK customer base predominantly, but we have got clients in Europe, we've got clients in Australia, we've got clients in America as well. So we're making those breakthroughs into other countries as well, and the presence in those different countries is only going to grow as time goes on. But predominantly we serve the UK, but we have got an international client base.
So if anybody is listening to this and wants to find out how they can get hold of you to do, or have a talk to you about cybersecurity, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can find me on LinkedIn, Jon Coss. They can go onto our website, which is www.jc-cybersecurity.co.uk. They can give us a call. Our number's 0333 305 0605. Or they can find us on any social media platforms just by searching for JC Cyber Services.
Okay. Siraj, have you got any questions you want to ask Jon? You're on mute.
I haven't got any questions, but I just thought I'd hear a bit more about what you do. And, it's quite interesting. I think I have actually got a question that's come to mind. So in terms of the general public, do you think the majority of people are not aware of how important cybersecurity is, and they're not doing it enough? And what should they actually do?
Yeah, I think the knowledge of cybersecurity for the general public is very, very low. Whether that be because the lack of marketing around it, the lack of information provided by the government is on the weaker side at the moment. That's only going to improve as time goes on. But whether it's the lack of legislation around it. So there's a lot of legislation for the larger companies, they need to achieve, for example, Cyber Essentials or ISO 27001, or they need to get a CREST accredited penetration test. Now, I've just thrown a load of jargon at you, but it's very heavily legislated for the larger organizations. But for the smaller businesses and for the more general public, as you say, there's no legislation to tell you that you have to do this. And again, it goes back to information. There's not enough information going out there. That will come in the future. It's bound to happen. But I suppose from a basics point of view, there's 5 things that the basics. Number 1 is have an antivirus. That's just key to having that on your device. Number 2 is having strong passwords is also that. So consider having a password manager. The only password I know is the password to get into the password manager. Every other password, I couldn't tell you what my password is to get into Facebook, for example, because I don't know it, because it's randomly generated by the password manager. Number 3 is by ensuring that you're installing updates and making sure that you're keeping your PC, your phone, your applications, your laptops all up to date, because companies don't just go, fancy releasing an update today. They don't do that. They release updates for a reason, whether it's to make the features better, but 9 times out of 10, they're releasing an update because they found a security vulnerability within their software. So you install that update to basically close that patch. Having a good firewall in place. Now, most people that live at home will have a router where their ISP provides, and that comes with basic firewall configuration on there, but it's important to make sure that it's configured in the right way and the most secure way for you. And the 5th one is make sure that you change your passwords regularly. Don't just keep the same password all the time, because eventually someone will crack the password. And with the technology that's out there today, It's only a matter of time. Like I say this all the time, it's no longer a matter of if, it's now a matter of when. It's bound to happen to you at some point, and then that's what businesses don't realise. So those are the 5 key things that I would consider doing. And the 6th thing as well, one more I'll add on a bonus: multi-factor authentication. So when you log into Facebook or you log into your emails, typically you'll put your email address and your password in, and then you're into the account. That's not secure enough these days. What multi-factor authentication does is you'll put your email address in, you put your password in, you'll hit sign in, and then it will say, please provide this code. Now you can either have the code text to you, or you can have an authentication app on your phone that generates a 6-digit code. So when you hit sign in, if you've opted for a text message, you'll get a text, and then you put the code in that's text to you, or you go onto the app, the authentication app, and put the 6-digit code in there. So it adds an extra level of authentication to any of your accounts these days. Most websites will support multi-factor authentication. Some are still in the process of moving to it, but the ones that do support it, I'd strongly recommend putting that in place. Yes, it's time consuming because you've got to then go on your phone to get the code out, but just think of the security perspective of that.
Interesting. So I'm going to ask another question regarding security. Okay, we know about Google, and they've got this, everybody keeps saying they're listening, especially if you've got things like Alexa and all that kind of stuff, you know. How secure is that? Because, you know, sometimes I wonder, like, what are they listening to? Because if you can speak to something and they can hear, so how much of that information are they storing from a security point of view? Would you have that? Is it something that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think every company will gather information regardless of what they do. And then the larger the company you are, the more information that's going to be given away. I think it was about 6 months ago, the Amazon Alexa, when you used to talk to it and request it to do things, it used to store the conversations that you'd have with Alexa. And they would actually keep records for years and years past. So since you bought the Alexa, since you plugged it in, it would store the entire conversations that you'd had with it. And you can actually request that from Amazon and say, what conversations have I had with Alexa? And it will give you a report showing everything that you've said to it. And they store that information. And that's where GDPR comes into play to try and protect your data. So they're not allowed to store that for a longer period of time. I think what's important to note here is nothing is completely secure, but it's important to ensure that limit the amount of information that you give away online, because a lot of companies are essentially building that profile of you, and they're only doing that so that they can market you in a targeted way. So, for example, you might have noticed that you've logged into Facebook and then you've gone onto Amazon and you've looked at a lawnmower for your back garden. An hour later, you'll go into Facebook on your phone and there'll all of a sudden be a special offer for a lawnmower on Amazon. And because you're looking at it, you're going to click on it because it's still fresh in your mind. And that's why these companies are collecting the information about you. So I think it's very important to limit the amount of information that you put out online, to ensure not only the security of yourself, but also for the safety of you as well.
I think, okay, I'm taking it to a different level now, you know, like with children, and they have their phones and their, you know, Twitter and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. So what kind of security can you put into place for them, you know, as in keeping them safe? And because they even have like locators and stuff like that. And, you know, people hear all these stories about people finding children, and, you know, obviously I don't like to talk about that, but it is going to become something that's a lot more prevalent, that's going to be, you know, out there. So what, as a parent or grandparent, what can you actually put there to protect your children or their children and yourself?
Yeah, so there's a lot of tools available out there to actually lock down devices and restrict access to certain things. Like the iPhone, you could put parental controls on there to stop children from downloading apps, stop them from sending out information. Now, this is a concern not only at a local level, but a national level and a global scale as well. They're in talks. This has come to the table about 6 months ago about using what's called a pseudonym. So a pseudonym is something. So you know me as Jon Coss, but I could be the Villa Man 1997 or something like that. That could be my pseudonym. And they're thinking of implementing that into social media, so nobody actually advertises themselves as themselves. So you're not going on Facebook as Siraj, you're not going on Facebook as Karen, but you might go on Facebook as, I don't know, Stapler, or I've only seen Stapler because I've just seen that on my desk. But you know what I mean? So that we're going to see that come into the future. But there are plenty of tools out there that parents can use to stop children from going on to certain things. But making sure that they actually teach the children about online safety and making sure that they seek approval before doing something. And yes, it might annoy the child when they can't download Fortnite or do those sorts of things, but it's for the safety of them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
You said about the password manager. What's that?
So a password manager is a tool that will store your passwords. Most password managers come with what's called a password generator, and it will generate a random string of letters, numbers, symbols, and it will generate a random string, and you can use that as your password, and it stores it so that you don't have to remember it. So therefore, the only password that you should need to remember is the password to get into your password vault, because the most common password that's out there has somebody's dog's name in it. Everybody will have their dog's name followed by 1, 2, 3, or their child's name followed by 1, 2, 3. Karen's looking at the piece of paper where she's got all the passwords written, going, "Oh my God, he's done everything." So what a password manager does is stops you from doing that. Because of the power of technology that's out there, we can generate common lists of passwords. Someone's dog's name followed by 1, 2, 3. Every single name in the Bible followed by 1, 2, 3. There's so many combinations of passwords that are very common out there. It will only take hours to crack. And if you repeat that password all over the place, because some of us are guilty of using the same password for our email that we do for Facebook, using the same password that we use for LinkedIn that we do for Zoom. There's so many passwords that a human brain can remember. And the average human these days has about 100 to 200 accounts online during their lifetime, sometimes even more. And trying to remember 200 different passwords is impossible. And trying to remember 200 secure passwords is impossible. So by using a password manager, you can generate a completely random string of 64 characters, of 20 characters, however big you want them to be. My smallest password is 64 characters long. I can't remember that password at all. It's random letters, random numbers, random symbols. Some are uppercase letters. It's all completely random. But the more random it is, the longer it takes to crack the password, therefore keeping you more secure. So that's the benefit of using password managers, as opposed to using your dog's name followed by 1, 2, 3.
So you can download this password manager, can you, from Google?
Yeah, so there's loads of different password managers out there. The top 3 that I recommend are, you've got LastPass, you've got 1Password, and you've got Keeper. Those are the 3 password managers that I'd recommend. Now, LastPass, you can get it on your phone, you can get it on your PC. It's typically, so I use Firefox as an internet browser. I have a Firefox extension for LastPass, or you might use Chrome. You can have a Chrome extension for LastPass. And as you're browsing the web, let's say you go on Facebook, it will automatically then fill out your login details for you. So all you've got to do is click login, and you haven't even had to remember what your password is. And that's the same for all of them. So you can have them on your phone, so that when you're using your phone, you've got your passwords with you. And then when you've got them, when you're on your PC, you've got them in your browser. For security purposes, when they're stored on the device, they get encrypted with what's called 256-bit AES encryption, which that's what it goes straight over your head, but that's essentially securing the passwords. They're then sent up to the provider's cloud storage, which is then encrypted again. So the people that work for the password manager company don't know or don't have any access to your passwords. Only you have access to that. But by being able to have it on your phone and have it on your PC, it's bliss. You got your passwords wherever you go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very
That's
interesting.
the safest way of keeping your password safe. And it's a free download, is it? It doesn't cost anybody anything to use that.
They used to be free. They've all, since about 3 or 4 months ago, they've now monetized it. LastPass is about £37 a year. It's cheap as chips when you compare it to the cost of a breach. Most password managers come in at around about £30 to £50 per year. And just by having that, it's a blessing for the security of yourself.
Yeah.
It's good to know.
Yeah, it is.
And if you need a demonstration on password managers or need any help, feel free to reach out. Always happy to help.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I think that was very, very informative. And if people have got questions that they want to ask you, they can email you or get in touch with you via LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Always happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Yeah. Okay. Or even put it in Facebook chat to you or on
Absolutely.
when I've downloaded the recording, and they can get in touch with you that way.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for your time this afternoon, for joining me for afternoon tea today.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for inviting me along. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jon.
Thank you,
Karen.
Suraj.